What if everything you were taught about Africa was incomplete, or simply not true? Because hundreds of years ago, in the middle of the Sahara Desert, there was a city filled with books, scholars, and some of the most advanced knowledge in the world. Not in Europe, not in Asia, but in Africa. This is the true story of Timbuktu, a city that proves Africa was never in the dark. Timbuktu began as a small trading settlement around the 12th century. It wasn't built to be famous. It wasn't designed to be powerful. It simply existed because of one thing: location. It sat at the crossroads of major trade routes between North Africa and West Africa. Caravans traveled across the Sahara Desert carrying salt, gold, ivory, and goods. And almost all of them passed through Timbuktu. And where trade flows, wealth follows. Over time, that small settlement grew into a powerful commercial center. Merchants came, wealth increased, influence expanded. But what made Timbuktu truly special wasn't just money, it was knowledge. By the 14th century, Timbuktu had entered what many now call its golden age. This was during the height of powerful West African empires like Mali. Under rulers like Mansa Musa, the region experienced massive growth. Mosques were built, schools were established, and scholars from different parts of the world began to gather in Timbuktu. It became a city where learning was respected and knowledge was power. One of the most important centers of learning in Timbuktu was the Sankore Mosque, which also functioned as a university. But this was not like modern universities with classrooms and lecture halls. Education in Timbuktu was more personal. Scholars taught students in open spaces, courtyards, and within mosques. Learning was direct, deep, and respected. Students didn't just memorize information, they mastered it. They studied subjects like mathematics, astronomy, medicine, law, philosophy, and religion. At a time when many parts of the world were still struggling with literacy, Timbuktu had a thriving intellectual culture. And then came something even more powerful: the books. Timbuktu became home to one of the largest collections of manuscripts in the world. Over time, hundreds of thousands of handwritten texts were created, collected, and preserved. Some estimates say there were over 700,000 manuscripts. These were not basic writings. They contained advanced knowledge about science, trade, medicine, governance, and more. Some texts explained complex mathematical ideas. Others discussed astronomical observations. Some even gave medical advice that is still relevant today. And here's the shocking part. In Timbuktu, books were more valuable than gold. Families treated them like treasure. They passed them down from generation to generation. They protected them during wars, migrations, and even invasions. Knowledge was not just respected, it was protected. As Timbuktu grew, its reputation spread across Africa and beyond. Scholars traveled from distant lands just to study there. It became known as a city of intellect, a place where your status was not based on how much wealth you had, but on how much knowledge you possessed. Visitors described Timbuktu as a place filled with educated people, libraries, and deep intellectual discussions. This was Africa's center of learning. But like many great civilizations, Timbuktu's dominance did not last forever. In the late 1500s, the city faced a major turning point. Moroccan forces invaded Timbuktu, weakening its political and economic power. Trade routes began to shift. The influence of the city slowly declined. Scholars left, institutions weakened, and over time, Timbuktu lost its global importance. But even as the city declined, something survived. The manuscripts. Families hid them in walls, buried them underground, and kept them safe for generations. They understood something the world ignored. These documents were proof. Proof that Africa had a deep intellectual history. Proof that knowledge existed long before colonization. These documents were proof. Proof that Africa had a deep intellectual history. Proof that knowledge existed long before colonization. Proof that the narrative was incomplete. Centuries later, researchers and historians began to rediscover these manuscripts, and what they found changed everything. The writings confirmed that Timbuktu was not just a trading city, but a center of education, science, and advanced thinking. It challenged the long-standing idea that Africa had no written history. Because the truth was always there, it was just hidden. Today, Timbuktu stands as a symbol, a reminder that history is not always what we are told, a reminder that knowledge can exist, even when it is ignored, and a reminder that Africa's story is far deeper than most people realize. So the next time someone says Africa had no history, no civilization, no knowledge, remember Timbuktu, a city in the desert, where books were worth more than gold, and ask yourself one question: why wasn't this taught?